So yeah, welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people here. I do have a bit of a PowerPoint to go through first, so I hope that's okay. And I will be sharing it on screen now. If people can give me a thumbs up, either in the reactions bar or with your own thumb, that would be great when you can see the PowerPoint. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, as Kevin was saying, a little bit of a title, but a working title, should we say, is what is youth work's role in the variety of topics related to the natural environment? And we're going to be exploring quite a lot today in the time that we have. So I hope you get something from all the different discussions. So as always, a little bit of housekeeping. As Kevin said, this is being recorded. If you don't want to be recorded, please turn your camera off. We do encourage you to turn your camera on in breakout rooms, but these won't be recorded, just so that people can see your faces when you're having discussions, but you really don't have to if you don't want to. Please try and keep muted when other people are talking, because it helps prevent background noise. Use the chat to ask questions and to chat publicly with each other. And if I am rambling on and you can't get a word in, do use the chat, and Kevin or Stephen will shout at me to answer your question. We will be using breakout rooms and Jamboard. Don't worry too much about Jamboard. I will be going through it with you all before we go into breakout rooms. It can be sometimes difficult on phones. So if you're on a phone, we'll make sure that you're with a person on a computer or laptop. But if we do have any issues with that, I'll make sure that I pop into the breakout rooms. If you need to leave the meeting at any point, you can click leave room in the breakout room. And if you need to leave this room, you can press leave meeting. And if you do need help during the session, you can message myself or Stephen or Kevin, and we will try and help you out. So a bit of a code of conduct, as Kevin said. I think the main one, just try not to share your personal details on here, and also just be really respectful of everyone's opinion and be honest. And it's a really open space for reflective discussions. So hopefully we can have that. So as I said, we'll be using a bit of Jamboard, and this is what it sort of looks like. It's like a whiteboard where you can put post-it notes on, and you can doodle on it and you can write notes, and we'll be exploring how to use it before going into the breakout rooms, and we will be exploring this map. So please don't worry if you're looking at it and thinking, I don't understand what that is, because we'll be going through it. As Cohen said, I'm Lydia and I'm a youth work specialist at MYA. I didn't think I would go into youth work when I was younger. I thought I would go into a sort of a more environmental role. I studied geography at university, and I thought I was going to go into like conservation, but I didn't. And I discovered youth work, and I realised the value of it and inspiring, engaging young people in the environment and environment topics. And I have a really big passion for it. And I get involved in a lot of voluntary stuff around it as well. Kevin has introduced himself, and you can see him in his little camera. And Stephen is also here. So Stephen, MYA admin, will help you with all your issues. If you have any tech stuff going on, then do just message him. And he'll be helping me with breakout rooms as well. So a bit of a session overview. So I've just gone through a bit of housekeeping, code of conduct, introductions. We're going to have a breakout room for Icebreaker next, and it's going to be really simple questions just so that you can get to know one another a bit more. Then I'm going to be talking through the MYA youth work curriculum and how it links to environment and sustainable development topics. And then we're going to be exploring this map of activity, which I created. It hasn't come from anywhere, so there's a lot of gaps in it. And this is what I'm hoping we'll explore together to fill in those gaps. And then you'll be able to do that in breakout rooms on Jamboard. And then we'll have a bit of a 10-minute break because it is a long session, an hour and a half. And we'll all come back together to explore the results. So we'll all look at what everyone's put down in terms of their experience that they have, the practice that they'd like to develop further, and what other topics you'll be focusing on in the near future and in the long-term future, with all the different world conversations going on at the moment and what will be going on towards the end of the year. And hopefully we can form some collaborations or just discuss similarities. And then we'll have a little bit of a resources look at different links, a bit of an evaluation and reflection time. Ooh, so like lots to cover, but I think it's going to be good. So first of all, would you mind giving us a thumbs up on the reactions toolbar if you're on a laptop? Because it will really help with, and I can't see all of your faces, which doesn't help, but so, because basically it helps with the typing, or if you're on a phone, then someone else can type for you, which is always nice. So quite a few people there. Thank you for doing that. So the icebreaker questions are your name and the organisation you work for and where it's based, why you signed up to this webinar, and your favourite biscuit. And if you don't like biscuits, your favourite snack. I will be surprised if there isn't a biscuit fan in the room, but you never know. So Stephen, would you mind putting people into breakout rooms and making it about a 10-minute icebreaker, please? Cool. Well, I hope you had I hope you all had some good discussions and worked out where everyone is based and the organisations that you're part of, and obviously very important biscuit conversation. So now I'm going to talk about a little bit of an overview in terms of where the youth work curriculum sort of fits into environment and sustainable development. And if you didn't know, the MYA Youth Work curriculum only came out I want to say last year, at the end of last year, but you know when all these months blur into one with lockdown and you're not quite sure when time passed and when it stood still and whatnot. I feel like it's one of those things, but it's on our website, and I will share the links at the bottom of the slide as well, and we'll share them at the end. So I would say we have like a very, very overview of it in the curriculum, and I would say it possibly doesn't go into as much detail as I would like. However, there's so much to cover in the curriculum. It is very overview. So there's strong links with global citizenship. There's a lot of links to young people having their own voice, standing up for what they believe in, but also the social action element. So them being able to deliver projects, them being able to shout about the sort of lifestyle choices that they want to take on, and it is very community based, and it does depend on sometimes it depends on the local area, but then you can take that local, go national, and even go global with it. So there's a few aspects that you can explore with the youth work curriculum. These are the main things of what youth work can do with it. So it can help raise awareness of young people, but actually usually it's young people raising awareness to other people, so usually it's young people telling us the facts, and enabling them to look into different opportunities. And actually youth work can offer so many different opportunities, like I was just talking about with social action projects, but also links to, say, local council members, so that they can get their voices heard on the topics. Now, I didn't put in bold about the Sustainable Development Goals. Even though the youth work curriculum connects to it, I think we can do so much better than the Sustainable Development Goals, and it might be a good intro and a good overview to different aspects of environment and sustainable issues, but I wouldn't go into like loads of detail on it. But that's honestly just my personal preference, and it's completely up to different youth workers what they want to take on. So with that really massive overview, we're now thinking about what's happened recently and what's going to happen soon and in the long-term future, and how we can implement environmental youth work in our practice in that way. So I've just put down a few things. So obviously COVID restrictions have had a massive effect on young people now and in their future, and in their long-term future actually as well. So we've seen that in employment, we've seen that in opportunities, and we've definitely seen a huge impact on mental health crisis. It was bad enough before the lockdown, and it's got even worse now. So how can environmental youth work potentially help tackle some of these issues, or at least work towards supporting young people? But then also there's very exciting global meeting or conference happening in November, which is COP26 in Glasgow, and it's very exciting that it's in the UK this year. And there's also COP15, which is actually mainly based around biodiversity and nature, which is happening, I want to say it's end of October, but I feel like they haven't been very official with that yet because of COVID restrictions, etc. So I don't think a lot has gone out publicly about that, but it's thinking about actually what positives can we bring, because at the moment I know I just said a load of negatives, but at the moment young people are hearing all the negatives, and I think they know enough about the negatives now, their future, but actually what positive things can we say? Look, we've got this to look forward to, we can work towards this, we could do campaigns around this. So how could we bring that in as well? And actually I wanted to open this up to other people. So I mean, I've talked about these things, but does anyone else want to add in to what they've seen in their local area or what they've sort of experienced with their young people? Does anyone want to add in, or potentially what you're thinking of planning in the near and long-term future? There will be more time in the breakout rooms as well, but anyone want to add? Just unmute yourself, that's fine.
Do you want? I'll add. We're looking at working with young people. Partly, part of my directorate is communities, environment, and climate change. So we're going to be looking at how we already do an environmental audit with children at school. So we can look at their views of what they think needs to be done in different communities and such like. So we're looking at how we can sort of grow that, especially around sort of climate change kind of things and environment. One thing we're really careful of is making sure that when there are some environmental changes around parks and green spaces, is that young people's views are included. So they've got some ownership for it or some kind of involvement in the decision making. So we're quite careful to make sure that's included. And I think that's why I've come on this in particular, because I just want to know how to sort of grow that more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That's where we're coming at it from.
No, that's really cool. Thank you for that, Jo. There's a beautiful project called Future Proof Parks, and it's working with Friends of Parks groups across England, I want to say. I don't think it goes into the devolved nations. And it looks at how to engage young people through youth participation in Friends of Parks groups, which generally speaking, Friends of Parks groups are generally the older population who join that. And so they're trying to look at ways to engage younger people in that, and also for them to sort of lead on particular decisions. So that might be a good shout if you're looking at how they've done it. Groundwork have done a lot of work in that, and YA are involved in that, but we're sort of like a smaller partner in that. But Groundwork are trying to make strides even in COVID restrictions. It's been that project.
I was going to say, we have Pontefract. One of my big parks is Pontefract Park, which some people might know, that they might not. And they've just got a new massive state-of-the-art sports centre that's going to be opened there. And we do have a friends group for that particular place, which they were looking at having their meetings at a time that was more suitable to younger people. And they have New College, which is in the grounds. It's quite a unique park because it's got the park, it's got a lake, it's got the new sports centre, it's got a college, it's got the race course, all in this one big park. So they were looking at how to introduce young people into their meeting, because they are, and they'll happily say it themselves, their average age is about 86. So they're knocking on, bless them. But we came into COVID, so it sort of stopped that a little bit. So I'm hoping that we can pick those things back up after.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's definitely a representation like across other parks as well. That's not just that one. I think it's the general consensus. But that's so exciting. That sounds really cool as well. And it will be, sometimes it is just those simple things of actually, what time do you have your meetings? Where do you have your meetings? You realise that they have them in the local pub, and you're just like, maybe we could change that location, and maybe then that will open up to young people. And sometimes it's just those small changes that can really support that. But really interesting. Thank you so much for that, Jo. So I guess this type of thing we want to explore in this lovely map. Now, I made this. Please don't, whatever you do, quote me on it or put it anywhere, because it's quite embarrassing, because I've missed out a load of stuff on it. I keep looking at it and thinking, well, I missed out that and I missed out that. So what I was trying to capture is I was trying to capture environmental youth work across so many different sections, and be able to put youth voice and social action and anything about like youth leadership into the middle of it, and showing how young people connect to all these different things. So you can see the main things that I've put on there, which you can argue with, and you can add like another major circle if you want to, is education, like informal education, sustainability, enterprise and employment, and environment, nature and wildlife. And then you can see the different sections that go off from that. So some people might be already working in, say, health and well-being, and that mental well-being element, especially with lockdown. Some might be interested in, say, jobs and actually providing employment for young people and looking into environment, not just environmental jobs like practical conservation, but also sustainability jobs and that social impact jobs, environmental impact jobs. But then there's outdoor learning as well, which has become a really big thing with COVID restrictions, but also just generally because of young people getting outdoors whilst in school. There's the sustainability element of things like pollution. So you might have done some litter picks in your day, and you know, that's sort of not just environment, nature, wildlife, but actually it also tips over into the sustainability section. And if you were to go even bigger than that, you could say a young person could set up a community project, which then links to the enterprise and employment section, and straight away they've got a community project around litter picks. So it's sort of looking at all the different sections of it. And then at the very outer ring, which is purple, are the campaigns that are happening at the moment. And if any of you guys are doing any campaigns that you might like to add in there, then please do. I've tried to sort of put them, or I placed them where I thought would be best, but I'm not even really sure if I have placed them right. And COP26 is quite big on there. So if you're doing anything to do with COP26 and then run up to it and you want to share it with us, then please put a note by it. So for this map, this is on the Jamboard, and what I sort of envisioned the breakout rooms doing is adding in their own circles of what's missing, but then also saying what practice they're already delivering. So you could highlight a circle to say, I'm already doing this. And also the practice that you'd like to develop. So actually what you've never done before, but you'd really like to develop on it, and actually you'd really like to try with young people. And I know I'm saying this now because actually you're going to say, Lydia, how dare you? It depends on what the young people want, not what I want. But if you're sort of thinking about what young people's needs might be and what their wants might be, what sort of development do you see yourself going into, or what might you like to add into your sessions on practice? So I think I've got another slide sort of explaining the questions. So it's the areas you have experience in, what practice you'd like to develop, and what are the topics you'll focus on in the near and long-term future. So when I was talking about like COP26, would you focus on that? Will you focus on like another campaign? Will you focus on health and well-being? Will you focus on employment? So I'm going to share with you what the Jamboard looks like now, because I feel like, can people see the Jamboard? Is it shared? Yeah. So this is what a Jamboard looks like, and what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm on the wrong slide. So there's a few boards at the top, and Stephen will tell you which board you need to go into. So each breakout room is going to have a different board that they can like write on. And you've got all the instructions on the left-hand side. So you've got the questions. This is the toolbar. So you have like a pen feature, but what's probably the easiest is probably sticky note. So then you just write your sticky note. And then you can move it about and you can put it by a particular circle, and that'll help. And then if you need to, there's a 3 dots, and if you need to edit it or delete it, you can do that. You can circle stuff. Yeah, just have fun with it. I think the sticky notes is probably the easiest way of adding notes onto it. Is everyone okay with that? Can people give me a thumbs up to say, cool, I can do that, and Lydia, you don't need to worry. we'll be fine. Okay, good. So I am going to put 20 minutes for a breakout room for you guys to discuss what you've got experience in, what practices you'd like to develop, what are the topics you'll focus on in the near and long-term future. And what I'm aiming for is when we put all the results together, we can aim to look at collaborations potentially, we can look at who can support each other, we can look at potentially what resources MYA could provide and all that kind of thing, so that we can connect environmental youth work across England. Ooh, maybe. We'll see. So Stephen, would you mind putting people into breakout rooms for me?
Liz, are we going to share the link to the Jamboard to the breakout rooms, yeah?
That would also be really good, yeah. Stephen, would you mind putting the link in as well for people to click to? Okay, cool. I think we're all back. I hope those breakout rooms were successful. I was seeing a lot of activity on the Jamboards. I apologise that I didn't put the picture as the background, which I should have done, because then sometimes when you clicked on it and then it would move about and then all your circles and all your post-it notes were in the wrong place. So apologies, I should have put it as background. Lesson learnt. We've got a little bit of a break now of 10 minutes. And while you're away, I'm going to try and collate everything that you've written and put it on one board. It might not look the same as your board that you've done, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks for me if I missed anything out, and we'll come back and we'll discuss the results and potential collaborations or similarities or trends, etc. So whilst you're on this 10-minute break, if you could please switch off your camera and mute yourselves, and yeah, and then we'll come back in at like 5:42. That'd be great, thank you. Everyone has done so well on this. I'm so impressed. Let's just say it's a bit of a messier version, maybe. Can everyone see the Jamboard? Yeah, can you see it? Okay, cool. So I guess things that I noticed. So a lot of discussion around mental well-being, a lot of chat around sort of community stuff as well, like community projects, which is really nice to see. Some around like informal education, and some around what was I going to say? Like a little bit around sort of sustainability more, and plastics or litter or that area of stuff. But really, I want to hear from you guys, because apologies that I couldn't bring the circles over. Some people had drawn on, but I couldn't copy those over. But does anyone from each group want to sort of say what they want to work more on rather than what they currently work on? I think that would be quite interesting. Does anyone want to volunteer?
We were sort of talking about working together more with different kind of youth organisations, and saying that lots of things, especially to do with the climate crisis and the climate emergency, is all going to be very similar, because it's all the same emergency. And so it's no point each organisation sort of reinventing the wheel. And if organisations are doing things that other young people can get involved in, so I was saying at Woodcraft Folk we're running a national online program whilst we're in this pandemic, and so other youth organisations would be more than welcome to join our sessions around the climate crisis or around social action on climate change and that sort of thing. So just sort of working together more and finding out what each other is up to is something that we wanted to work towards.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's such a good point. And I put some of that down the side because it sounded really cool in blue. So just working together, acting like role models as well in some areas of our lives. And also, I'm guessing then that might have been you or someone else who was sort of talking about online weekly stuff going out. And Lauren, if you wanted to share those links, if it is national, like we can share out on our networks and share it out to people so that they can share their young people, if you'd be up for that.
Yep, we definitely would be up for that.
Cool, thank you for that. That'd be great. Would anyone else like to make any points?
We didn't have a discussion as such in ours, but I think one of the things for us is looking at our carbon footprint. So as an organisation, we're quite aware of that, being a council, so we have lots of vehicles, we have lots of other things that needs to reduce the carbon footprint. So that's what we're working towards in the future, is to look at how we can change that. So like electric vehicles, sort of promoting more tree planting, things like that. So that's some of the things that we're working towards. So
Yeah, cool.
I mean, it's something we've done for a while, but it's something that really has stepped up over the last few months, really, and hopefully that's something that we'll take forward more as we come out of the pandemic.
Yeah, nice. That sounds great. Thank you for that, Jay. Would anyone else like to comment on anything on the chart or anything you talked about?
We had an in-depth discussion around the difference in areas. So our group were quite different in terms of we had an inner city, we had a very rural Lake District represented, but then we had a worker from Grimsby as well, who's by the sea. And we were talking about the differences in the different areas, and actually for the workers by the sea, can they do tree planting and stuff like that, because they haven't got really masses of green space and stuff like that. So what sort of projects they could do instead and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I think you're right in saying that sometimes we do focus on, like, I guess, the national issues, and we forget about actually the local issues that are happening in those areas and what young people see every day. And you're right, the natural environment around people will be so different depending on if you're rural, if you're urban, if you're on the coast, if you're, I don't know, in the Dales, up a mountain. Like, it will be so different. And obviously in the UK there's so many issues with flooding now, and that really affects some people on a weekly basis, especially in winter. So no, you're completely right. It is about the issues that are close to you and the issues that the young people that you work with are also dealing with, and their families. So thanks for that.
Some of those local issue groups can have a real profound impact, though, can't they? I'm thinking of Surfers Against Sewage, which was very local to Cornwall, wasn't it, initially? But it's one of the better known environmental groups now, and they've achieved wonderful things.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many local groups sort of popping up. I guess I would say like local hubs that are like national. So I'd say Surface and Sewage are definitely like one of those. Who potentially work with local communities, but in sort of different hubs around the coast. But there's so much out there, and I really wish that I could even have a longer webinar, because I feel like we've literally scraped the surface of stuff. But unfortunately, it is an hour and a half long, and yeah, that's sort of all we got. But does anyone? I would like 10 minutes for evaluation and reflections and stuff. So if people do have contact details they want to share, or resources they want to share, they can do. But would anyone else like to comment on this map before? Oh, sorry, Mary, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was really good chatting in our group and stuff. And I think myself, and I think another National Park colleagues in the call as well, is that we're quite fortunate that we work in the environment with young people, and it's great. But we want to work with more. So I would just say to those on the call and those perhaps watching the recording, reach out to your local national park. We are doing stuff, a lot of stuff with young people. In fact, when I was saying to the group I was in, all of that's on your Jamboard, we do. And we do that with groups, children and young people. So yeah, get in touch with your local park and see what we're up to. And
which national park are you from, Mary? Or
North York Moors, I'm from.
Yeah. Oh, cool! Right near me.
Oh, right.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just add? It's interesting because part of my job, I work in what's called the super output areas. So my 3 areas are the top of the most deprived area in the Wakefield district. So it's easy sometimes just getting kids to plant a few trees and look at where they position things and put things. It's quite easy to just focus in on that one thing. And I think you forget that there's an actual array of things going on around you that you could possibly tap into. So it's really nice that people are sharing that, and they're making you. I always think we live in quite a rural district, but now that I know that some people work in North Yorkshire Moors, we're not that rural at all, really. But it's just nice to know that these things are there, so that we can tap into some, because some of these kids never get off the estates that they live on, and they don't know what's out there. So I think that's sort of is something that I'll take away from it and try and feed in more to the kids that we work with, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you both. Would anyone else like to chip in?
I think I would just chip in to say that definitely young people's mental health has been affected by the coronavirus, as we said, and all of those impacts that come with it, but also young people's mental health around the climate crisis as well is really important to focus on, I think, going forward.
That's so true. Eco anxiety has become a massive thing, and I didn't put that on my thing, which makes me feel really bad. But yeah, it's been massive. And if you you know, young people are writing blogs and articles on it now as well, and it's so important for them to voice that opinion. And I think you're right. I think it is going to get bigger. I think there is going to be more of that in the future. And sometimes it is therefore focusing. I know there might not be a lot of positives. Well, I'll show you that. There are positives out there. And sometimes, even though we can talk about the negatives of what could happen, I feel like there are positives that we can talk about to prevent that from happening or making that worse in some way. So focusing on those are really important when with young people. So I'm going to stop sharing this now because I always run out of time. So I'm going to go back to, sorry. I am going to go back to my PowerPoint if that's okay, but I need to actually make sure it's on the right slide before I share it with you. So there were some resources that I discussed at the first part of the session that I just wanted to share links with you on. So the youth work curriculum's on there on the MYA site. You can explore through all the different sections, though, like I said, the sustainable environment section is quite small. But you might like to look into the other sections on it. There's the youth work support site that's been open since March last year, and it has loads of stuff around COVID-19, working with young people digitally, lots of webinar recordings on there, all sorts of topics. Please go and check it out and share it with other youth workers. It was set up by MYA, the Mix, the Federation for Detached Youth Workers, and UK Youth. And then there's also the YouTube playlist, so you can watch this back if you want to, but you can also watch the previous webinars and future webinars on there too. I'd like to do a little bit of an evaluation, if that's okay with you. Have people used Menti before? A few nods and a few shakes, that's okay. So what I would like you to do is open up a browser, and it's Menti, www.menti.com. And then I am going to hopefully share the right screen with you so that you can type in a code which will show you. Here we go. So if you go to menti.com and then use the code 8737185, you should be able to answer the questions. The first one is like a sliding scale. And the second one is going to be a Wordle, and you're going to type in what training you might like in the future. And this is just to give me an idea of what MYA could provide, but also what we could provide in collaboration, which should be so exciting. And I'm so glad that a lot of you did focus on that in your discussions of like collaborating in the lead up to COP26, but even more than that, just collaborating across the sector in general. Are people doing all right with Menti? Because let me know if you're having issues with it. It's lovely because you get to see like the live results. As you can probably tell from the session, I love a visual. I'm such a visual learner, and definitely much a note taker. So that is why, probably why the session has been a lot of that. I'm going to move on, I think, to the next slide, and hopefully it will show up for you as well. So it's what future training would you like to join to do with environmental youth work? The grammar in that question might not be very good, but I think you get the gist. So you've got health, it might be mental health, because it might come up as one word answers, but we can work that out, don't worry. Sustainability, mental health again. Supporting campaigns, social action. Mental health got bigger, so I'm guessing someone else said that. Youth voice, carbon footprint. It's all coming in. Global collaboration, climate change, more social action, youth participation, getting young people interested in. It's going again. Virtual campaigns, environmental projects. Oh, there's loads. Practical toolbox. Community allotments, campaigns again, so lots there, and I'm sure I can definitely cover a lot of those actually, or get in contact with partners. The beautiful project called My Place by Lancashire Wildlife Trust, if you want to have a look at mental well-being. There's also a project run by Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, which is like a care farm, and it introduces young people to farm animals and they take care of them, and just the stories from that project are just beautiful. So thank you for all of those. That is amazing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And we do have another evaluation form. It's not as fun as Menti, it's the MWA one. And I think it's one that we share after every webinar, and it just gives us a good understanding of how these webinars are connecting with you and how they fit into it. And I believe Stephen will put that in the chat for me, please. So if you don't want to do it now, or you can do it now while we're going into reflections, that'll be lovely. Or you can have it open for when we finish, and then you can really concentrate on it. But would anyone like to add any comments, reflections, or even asks or suggestions from the Menti questions that you've just done, or just generally? Does anyone else want to add anything in? I think we might be good. I've put my email address on there, so if anyone would like to contact me directly about anything, then please do. My inbox is always open, and I do love collaboration, and I generally love networking as well, which is really hard to do when we're in lockdown. I think as youth workers, we're quite sociable creatures as well, so it just comes quite naturally. So the last thing to do is to say thank you. Thank you for attending, and it's been really fun. I'm always a little bit nervous about these things because it's a lot of like reflections and talking, but you were really good, and so thank you so much for joining in with the Jamboard as well. The next session for these webinars will be around pornography, what's the problem? And this will be led by Vanessa Rogers, and that's on Thursday from 1:30 till 3. So if that's something of interest, then please join us. But I'll pass over to Kev now to finish, if that's all right, Kev.
Sorry, just to interrupt quickly, Lydia. I posted the wrong form link before. It was to the sign up for these webinars as opposed to the feedback survey. I've now posted the right thing in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, people can open that before they leave the meeting, then it can stay open in your browser and you can fill it in your leisure.
Yeah, I was just about to say it. Thanks.
Thanks, Anila. I haven't really got anything to add apart from to add my thanks to Lydia for putting it all together. It was a really nice and interesting set of conversations. So yes, thanks very much, Liz. That was wonderful, and hopefully we'll see you all at the next one on Thursday.